I just saw her coming. She's a D-list actress, and all she's ever wanted to do was be invited to A-list events. And she's been a social climber from the beginning. She married somebody the first time to socially climb.
What happens when the fairy tale runs out of magic and the audience finally sees the script? Meghan Markle, once hailed as a modern-day Cinderella who broke the mold, is facing a backlash that's less about her race or royalty and more about what people are calling her greatest role yet, professional victim. But this time, it's not the palace or the press making headlines, it's her collapsing media empire, her tone-deaf rebrands, and a brutal takedown from Candace Owens that's blowing the whole narrative wide open.
It's so ignorant. It's just the height of ignorance to me to have this D-list actress that nobody knew go over there. Not her race is not discernible by the eye. If she walked in, you would never say Meghan Markle is a black woman.
No more soft-focused documentaries or delicate PR campaigns. Owens isn't pulling punches. She's exposing what she claims is the truth behind the carefully packaged story of struggle and survival. And for the first time, the public seems ready to listen. Because beneath the surface of Netflix series, Spotify deals, and jam jars lies a cold calculation. One that turned pain into product, identity into industry, and a marriage into a media strategy.
We figured out how to maneuver that by marrying a prince who, the only way to say it is he's just not as intelligent as her. He's not reading the situation as clearly as other people are reading it, and he has been subjected to her manipulation.
So, how did Meghan go from misunderstood duchess to one of the most polarizing figures in modern celebrity culture? And is there any turning back now that the curtain has been yanked down? Buckle up, because what you're about to hear isn't just the other side of the story, it's the side they never wanted you to hear.
I thought your analysis of this book was spot on. You've called Harry despicable for trying to trash the royal family's reputation and dragging them below even what the Kardashians would get up to.
Meghan Markle's entry into the British royal family wasn't just a romantic milestone, it was a masterclass in rebranding. Before Harry, she was a cable TV actress with a forgettable resume, best known for a supporting role on Suits. After the royal wedding, she was suddenly center stage on the global media circuit. But this wasn't a love story. This was leverage. Overnight, she flipped her public identity from actress to activist, duchess to disruptor. With every headline, every sit-down interview, every glossy profile, she became less about roles on screen and more about the narrative she controlled.
And for her, Harry was just an entry ticket into all of those circles. Unfortunately, she found someone. She's not very intelligent. She's not very talented. Nobody in America was watching Suits. She was an actress that was living in Canada. And fortunately for her, and credit to her, she found someone that is dumber than her. And that's the truth.
Meghan wasn't selling acting skills. She was selling herself as a symbol of resistance inside an outdated monarchy. But that's where things started to unravel. The public, at first curious and supportive, began noticing the script repeating itself. The claims of being silenced, the accusations of racism, the emotional interviews, the expensive tell-alls. It all started to feel a little familiar. Critics argued that this wasn't just her truth, it was a performance. Candace Owens seized on that.
Then she says her son, who, if you've seen a picture of, and you think that he has faced anti-Black racism in his life, then I'm a Nigerian prince, and I have, an account that you can send some money into.
She didn't just criticize Meghan's methods. She called them manipulative, branding the Duchess as someone who transformed hardship into currency. In Owens' words, Meghan hadn't been canceled. She'd been overexposed. The issue wasn't whether Meghan had experienced pain, it was that she repackaged it as her brand, and what once felt revolutionary began to feel rehearsed. Owens pointed out that for someone who claims to be silenced, Meghan always seems to have the final word and the spotlight. And when pain becomes profit, people start asking, how real was the suffering?
Her and Prince Harry, who always seem to snap into these weird royal roles, meaning they just go and visit the victims, like exactly what you would expect royals to do or politicians to do. They do this, and they are doing this right now.
Spotify was supposed to be Meghan and Harry's creative kingdom, a new frontier where their voices could finally be heard on their own terms. But after signing a multi-year deal, reportedly worth $20 million, the couple delivered just one show, one season, and one resounding flop. Archetypes, the much-hyped podcast hosted by Meghan, launched with fanfare and fizzled with fatigue. Critics called it overly scripted, painfully polished, and bizarrely out of touch. While it claimed to break down stereotypes, what it mostly did was break down patience. Even loyal fans struggled to finish episodes.
Well, Meghan Markle wanted to deconstruct a family, right? And she was going to pretend that it was for something noble. Racism, it wasn't so. It was really because she wanted fame and she wanted wealth.
A senior Spotify executive eventually called them what many had only whispered, grifters, not innovators, not visionaries, grifters. The label was a bombshell. Suddenly, this wasn't a case of an overworked couple navigating media. It was seen as a calculated cash grab. And Spotify's response wasn't subtle. The deal was scrapped. Meghan and Harry's names were quietly removed from internal documents. And just like that, the audio empire evaporated. No farewell message, no graceful exit, just corporate silence.
She caught a moment, and there was very much a government incentive to cause so much division with BLM, but she's not going to run in politics. She's very happy where she is in a multi-million-dollar mansion, lunching with Oprah. That was her dream, and she got it.
The real scandal wasn't the failed podcast. It was the implication that the entire project was performative, a polished performance cloaked in buzzwords like empowerment and authenticity. But when the show ended, it wasn't authenticity that remained, it was disappointment. Meghan's carefully constructed brand had hit its first real wall, and Spotify was the first platform to walk away. Netflix gave Meghan and Harry their biggest stage, and they stumbled under the spotlight. After their royal exit, the streaming giant welcomed them with open arms and open wallets. First came the docuseries Harry and Meghan, a 6-part project promising behind-the-scenes truths and untold stories. But what audiences got instead were mood-lit confessions, sweeping drone shots, and endless close-ups of avocado toast and ambient music.
The executive over at Spotify pretty much said that these are a bunch of lazy people with bad ideas that feel entitled to money. It's the ultimate entitlement is what you're taking a look at. And
it felt more like a luxury Airbnb commercial than a bombshell expose. The production was cinematic, but empty. Viewers tuned in expecting emotional depth and were left with soft-focus B-roll and scripted sincerity. The reviews were savage. Critics called it indulgent, sterile, and deeply forgettable. Then came Meghan's personal project. With Love, Meghan, a lifestyle show that tried to channel Martha Stewart but landed more like a Pinterest board gone stale. The pilot episode featured Meghan cooking in a friend's mansion kitchen, plucking herbs from a garden, and assembling the most curated-looking salad in human history. It was tone-deaf at best, laughable at worst. In the middle of a global recession, Meghan was promoting $200 candles and homemade jam, while the rest of the world struggled with rent and grocery bills. The disconnect was shocking.
I don't know if any person listening to this program actually took the time to listen to the podcast that she produced on Spotify. I did. It was a source of great humor for me. And I played some of those tidbits on the show. It's weird. It's raspy. It's her talking about her dreams, talking about, the patriarchy and feminism and just all of the buzzwords that get you invited to the right parties in LA.
Netflix had banked on the Sussexes, bringing in viewers with their royal mystique. Instead, they got a reality series nobody could relate to. And worse, nobody wanted to finish. Candace Owens didn't just criticize Meghan Markle, she torched her entire public image with the precision of a political hit. Owens accused Meghan of treating victimhood as a marketing strategy, not a lived experience. And she wasn't subtle. Her attacks weren't just personal, they were philosophical. She framed Meghan's every move as part of a broader cultural trend, where identity and suffering are weaponized for clout. In Owens' eyes, Meghan didn't just want to escape the royal family, she wanted to monetize her escape.
I'm not entirely shocked that he didn't spend that much time with his father. I have not been holding my breath for them to unify as a family because some of the things that were done, quite literally selling your family for profit. It's unheard of, but it's a Marxist belief that there's something more noble. There's something that the state wants you to believe in that's more noble.
Her son's racial identity? Owens implied it was a convenient narrative tool. Her claims of institutional cruelty? A distraction from a larger grift. And Owens had backup. Millions of views, a loyal audience, and a platform that thrives on exposing what she sees as hypocrisy. With every appearance, she chipped away at Meghan's credibility, turning public skepticism into open mockery. What hit hardest wasn't the sarcasm, it was the receipts. Owens pointed to interviews, timelines, public contradictions. She connected dots. And for a media-savvy audience already tired of the Meghan and Harry saga, it felt like vindication. What Candace Owens really did was pull back the curtain, and once the audience saw the strings, the illusion couldn't hold.
The reason why it failed is because people want authenticity. And unfortunately, they aren't getting that from this couple anymore. So they're just going to keep being shuffled from award show to award show, given awards for basically doing absolutely nothing but acquiescing to a government narrative. It's quite pathetic and it's sad.
Meghan's biggest strength had always been controlling the narrative. But in Owens, she met someone who refused to read from her script. Prince Harry once captivated the world as the rebellious royal, the wild card in a sea of stiff upper lips. But now, to many, he is little more than a +1 in his wife's Hollywood hustle. The memoir, the mental health series, the interviews, it's all felt reactive, not revolutionary. And while Meghan is seen as the architect of their brand, Harry seems increasingly like the passenger. Each public appearance feels more rehearsed than the last. When he speaks, it's often to echo Meghan's talking points. When he acts, it's often in her shadow. The boy who once walked behind his mother's casket with stoic bravery now seems lost in a maze of podcasts, think pieces, and PR deals. Critics have noticed the shift. Once adored for his candor and relatability, Harry now comes across as performative and scripted. He's traded the royal stage for Hollywood sound stages, and he's not thriving in the transition. Even allies have begun to question his role. Is he a true believer in their shared mission, or just swept along in the current of Meghan's media strategy? Whatever the answer, the public perception is clear. The prince who once stood out now blends in, and not in a good way. Nothing says luxury activism quite like artisanal jam. When Meghan launched her new brand, American Riviera Orchard, the announcement came not with a product launch or a mission statement, but with jars of fruit preserves sent to influencers. Social media exploded, but not with praise, with memes. In an era where people are cutting back on essentials, Meghan was selling the idea of upper-crust domesticity, complete with embossed labels and curated branding that felt more Pottery Barn than purpose-driven. Critics blasted the move as laughably out of touch. It wasn't just the optics, it was the timing. Food banks were at capacity, rent prices were skyrocketing, and Meghan was marketing $30 jam. Even loyal fans squirmed. The disconnect between her public persona, fighting for the voiceless, and her actual product line, preserves and porcelain, was impossible to ignore. The branding was supposed to be soft, subtle, and artisanal. Instead, it came off as oblivious. And in the court of public opinion, tone deafness is a cardinal sin. American Riviera Orchard might have been meant to represent rebirth, but all it did was reinforce the growing belief that Meghan's brand has drifted too far from the people she claims to represent. To understand Meghan's current image crisis, you have to go back to the strategy. None of this, Spotify, Netflix, archetypes, Orchard, was accidental. It was a roadmap. The moment she married Harry, Meghan gained something that Hollywood could never give her: automatic relevance. She didn't need casting directors anymore. She had headlines. And she didn't need roles. She had royalty. Every scandal became a soundbite. Every snub, a segment. Every tear, a talking point. And she spun it all into content. But somewhere along the way, the narrative stopped working. The overproduction, the calculated vulnerability, the curated outrage, it all started to feel too designed, too smooth, too fake. The public, once empathetic, became exhausted. What had felt like a battle for truth began to look like a branding campaign, and like any campaign, it had an expiration date. Meghan built an empire on being misunderstood, but now that people feel they fully understand her, the mystique is gone. The strategy wasn't flawed, it was finite, and when the plot twist becomes predictable, the audience walks out. So here we are. Meghan Markle, the duchess turned disruptor, the actress turned activist, now faces her toughest role yet, staying relevant in a world that's no longer buying what she's selling. The Spotify flop, the Netflix nosedive, the jam jar debacle, the Candace Owens drag, all of it points to one hard truth. The brand is broken, the narrative is tired, and the reinvention machine is out of steam. What Meghan once mastered, turning struggle into status, pain into power, no longer lands. The audience has seen the seams, the critics have drawn blood, and even her biggest platforms have moved on. The question now isn't whether Meghan can bounce back, it's whether there's even an appetite for the next act. Can she pivot again? Can she recapture the world's attention without leaning on the same tropes of trauma and titles? Or will the world remember her not for the change she claimed to champion, but for the brand she couldn't let go of? Drop a comment if you're ready to hear the full truth. Hit like, hit subscribe, and stay tuned. Because if there's one thing we've learned about Meghan and Harry, it's that the circus may pack up, but it never really leaves town.